Colorado Territory, 1887. Owen Kincaid squinted against the rising sun as he stood on his porch, the familiar weight of exhaustion settling into his bones like an old friend. 3 years a widower, he'd learned to accept the solitude of dawn when the memory of Sarah's absence cut the deepest. The sprawling ranch stretched before him, 500 acres of promise and burden alike. Pa, his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, came barreling through the front door, her nightgown fluttering around her ankles, dark hair wild from sleep. "There's a lady in our barn." Owen's hand instinctively moved to his hip where his Colt usually rested. "What did you say, sweetheart?" "A lady, sleeping in the hay loft. I went to say good morning to Daisy before breakfast, and there she was." Lily's eyes were wide with wonder rather than fear. "She has hair like fire, Pa. I think she's perfect." "Perfect?" Owen frowned, reaching for his hat. "Stay here, Lily. Don't you move from this porch, you hear?" Lily nodded solemnly, but her eyes danced with excitement. "She's got a bag with books in it, Pa, real ones." Owen approached the barn with caution, pushing the heavy wooden door open with deliberate slowness. The familiar smells of hay, horse, and leather greeted him. Morning light filtered through the slats, casting golden beams across the dusty air. Daisy, their milk cow, lowed softly from her stall. "Hello," he called, his voice firm despite the strangeness of addressing an intruder in his own barn. "I'm coming up, and I'm armed." He wasn't, but the stranger didn't need to know that. A shuffling sound came from above, followed by a soft, unmistakably feminine voice. "Please, I mean no harm. I'll be gone in a moment." Owen climbed the ladder to the hayloft, keeping his movements measured. As his head cleared the level of the floor, he saw her, a woman with hair indeed the color of autumn flames, hastily stuffing belongings into a weathered carpet bag. Her dress, though dusty from travel, was of good quality, forest green wool with small mother-of-pearl buttons, not the garb of a common vagrant. She looked up, and Owen felt an unexpected jolt at the directness of her gaze. Green eyes, clear and intelligent, met his without flinching. "Ma'am," he said, finding his voice. "You're trespassing." "I'm aware, sir," she replied, rising to her feet with dignity despite hay clinging to her skirts. "I arrived after nightfall and only meant to rest until dawn. Your barn door was unlocked, and the storm was worsening." She extended her hand in a surprisingly formal gesture. "Katherine Novak, I apologize for the intrusion." Owen hesitated before taking her hand briefly. "Owen Kincaid, where are you headed, Miss Novak, that you're traveling alone through these parts?" A shadow crossed her face. "To Silverdale. I have a position waiting there." Silverdale's a rough mining town, no place for a lady traveling alone. He studied her more carefully. Despite the weariness in her eyes, she stood straight-backed, chin lifted slightly in defiance or pride. Owen couldn't tell which. "I assure you, Mr. Kincaid, I'm more than capable." A small voice interrupted from below. "Pa, can the lady stay for breakfast? I told Mrs. Gunderson we'd have a guest." Owen turned to see Lily's face peering up at them, having clearly disobeyed his instruction to stay on the porch. "Lily," he began sternly. "Please." His daughter's eyes were pleading. "Mrs. Gunderson made johnnycakes. She says we can't let anyone leave hungry, even if they're trespassers." Katherine Novak's lips twitched toward a smile before composing themselves. "I wouldn't wish to impose further." Owen sighed, recognizing defeat. Between his daughter's hopefulness and Mrs. Gunderson's firm belief in Western hospitality, he had little choice. "One meal," he conceded. "Then we'll discuss getting you safely to Silverdale." Katherine nodded, relief briefly softening her features before that careful composure returned. She descended the ladder with practiced grace, carpetbag clutched in one hand. Lily beamed, reaching for Katherine's free hand. "I'm Lily. I like your hair. Are you a princess?" "Pa says princesses don't come to Colorado, but you look like the pictures in my book." "Lily," Owen cautioned, but Katherine had already knelt to the child's level. "I'm no princess," she said gently. "Just a teacher heading to her new school. But thank you for the compliment." Lily's eyes widened. "A real teacher? With books and slates and everything?" "Yes, with books and slates and everything." As they walked toward the house, Owen noticed how Katherine's gaze swept across the ranch, not with the idle curiosity of a passerby, but with keen assessment. Her eyes lingered on the corral with its half-repaired fence, the vegetable garden showing signs of inexpert tending, the empty clothesline where Sarah used to hang their laundry with military precision. "Your daughter is charming," Katherine said quietly as Lily skipped ahead. "Her mother raised her right," Owen replied, the words coming out more roughly than he'd intended. "Sarah's been gone 3 years now. I'm sorry for your loss." The simple sincerity in her voice caught Owen off guard. Most people offered platitudes or uncomfortable silence. Katherine Novak offered neither. Mrs. Gunderson, a stout Norwegian widow who came 3 times weekly to help with cooking and laundry, was setting the table when they entered the kitchen. She looked up, her weathered face breaking into a knowing smile at the sight of their guest. "So Lily was right. Good morning to you, miss. Sit. Coffee's hot." Katherine thanked her politely, setting her carpet bag carefully by the door. Owen noticed how her eyes darted to the exits, a habit of someone accustomed to planning escape routes. It raised questions he wasn't sure he wanted answers to. Breakfast was an unusual affair. Lily chattered continuously, peppering Katherine with questions about being a teacher, about books, about whether she could braid hair like fire. Mrs. Gunderson heaped Jonna cakes onto plates with generous portions of molasses, while Owen observed their visitor over the rim of his coffee cup. Something about Katherine Novak didn't quite add up. Her speech and manners spoke of Eastern refinement, yet she traveled alone through dangerous territory. She claimed to be a teacher, but her hands, though elegant, showed signs of work beyond a classroom. And occasionally, when she thought no one was watching, her expression changed, a flash of something that looked like wariness or possibly fear. The stage to Silverdale doesn't come through until Thursday, Owen found himself saying as Mrs. Gunderson cleared the plates. 3 days from now. Katherine's spine stiffened. Perhaps someone in town might be heading that direction sooner? Not likely. The mining company's wagon won't make its run until week's end. I see. Her fingers twisted the napkin in her lap. Is there an inn where I might? We have a spare room, Lily interrupted eagerly. Don't we, Pa? The blue room where Aunt Martha stays when she visits. Owen should have said no. Having a strange woman under his roof went against all common sense. But looking at his daughter's hopeful expression and at Katherine's carefully masked anxiety, he found himself nodding slowly. You're welcome to stay until the stage comes through, in exchange for help around the ranch. Mrs. Gunderson only comes Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Oh yes, Lily clapped her hands. And you can read to me from your books, and maybe teach me things. Katherine looked between father and daughter, hesitation clear in her eyes. You're very kind, but I wouldn't wish to burden you. It's settled then, Mrs. Gunderson declared, as if Katherine had accepted. I'll show you to the room myself. Lily, fetch fresh linens from the press. As his daughter scrambled to comply, Owen caught Katherine's eye. Miss Novak, a word outside, if you please. On the porch, morning sunshine illuminated the tiny freckles across her nose that he hadn't noticed in the barn's dimness. Up close, he could see that her clothes, while well-made, had been carefully mended in several places. Mr. Kincaid, I appreciate your hospitality, but are you in some kind of trouble? He asked bluntly. Her eyes widened briefly before her expression smoothed. What makes you ask that? You're a woman traveling alone, sleeping in strangers' barns rather than seeking proper lodging. You watch doors like someone expecting pursuit. If you're bringing danger to my home, to my daughter, I need to know. Katherine drew a deep breath. I assure you, I am exactly who I claim to be. A teacher headed to Silverdale. My circumstances for travel were hastily arranged, which is why I find myself without proper accommodations. That doesn't answer my question. No one is pursuing me, Mr. Kincaid. Not in the way you're imagining. Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her, clasping and unclasping at her waist. I promise you, I pose no danger to your household. Owen studied her face, searching for deception. What he saw instead was pride and determination, alongside something that looked remarkably like grief. 3 days, he said finally. You help with the cooking and keeping an eye on Lily when I'm working the south pasture. Then you catch the Thursday stage to Silverdale. Relief softened her features. Thank you. I'll earn my keep, I promise. As they sealed their agreement with a handshake, neither noticed Lily watching from the window, a triumphant smile on her small face as she hugged her rag doll close and whispered, See, Molly? I told you she was perfect. That afternoon, Owen rode out to check the fence line along the creek, his thoughts circling back to their mysterious guest. Katherine had changed into a simpler dress, blue cotton, faded but neat, and was already helping Mrs. Gunderson with the laundry when he left. The sight of another woman's clothing hanging on Sarah's clothesline had stirred emotions he thought long buried. The sound of hoofbeats pulled him from his reverie. James Taylor, his closest neighbor and the town's deputy sheriff, rode toward him with a purposeful air that immediately put Owen on alert. "Owen," James called, bringing his horse alongside. "Saw you riding out. Thought I'd catch you before you went too far." "Something wrong?" James reached into his vest and extracted a folded paper. "Sheriff asked me to distribute these. Been a woman reported missing from Denver. Wealthy family offering a reward." Owen's stomach tightened as he took the paper. Unfolding it, he found himself staring at a skillfully rendered drawing of Katherine Novak. Asterisk missing. Katherine Elizabeth Novak, age 26. Last seen departing her father's home in Denver, April 12. Auburn hair, green eyes. Maybe traveling under an assumed name. Handsome reward offered for information leading to her safe return. Contact Judge Edward Novak, Denver. Asterisk saw a red-headed woman at your place this morning, James said carefully. Mrs. Gunderson mentioned it when she stopped by the general store. Owen kept his expression neutral. Just a traveler passing through. Heading to Silverdale on Thursday's stage. Silverdale, huh? James studied him. Judge Novak's mighty worried about his daughter. Says she's not in her right mind. Left after some kind of disagreement. That's so. Owen refolded the paper, tucking it into his shirt pocket. If I see anyone matching this description, I'll be sure to let the sheriff know. James nodded slowly. See that you do? Judge has connections all through the territory. Not someone to cross. He tipped his hat. Give my best to little Lily. As James rode away, Owen sat motionless, the wanted poster burning against his chest like a brand. He should ride straight back, confront Katherine with what he now knew, maybe even escort her to the sheriff's office himself. Instead, he turned his horse toward the south pasture. He needed time to think. Back at the ranch, Katherine stood at the kitchen table, flour dusting her hands as she rolled out dough for the evening bread. The rhythmic motion was soothing, familiar, one of the few household tasks she genuinely enjoyed. Through the window, she could see Lily in the garden, carefully watering the rows of vegetables under Mrs. Gunderson's supervision. The domestic scene felt surreal after weeks of hasty departures and sleeping in barns. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different life, one with the steady comfort of routine, where her worth wasn't measured by her father's ambitions or the size of her dowry. "Miss Katherine," Lily burst through the door, clutching a fistful of wildflowers. "Look what I found by the fence. Mrs. Gunderson says they're called." She frowned, turning to the older woman who followed her in. "What were they called again?" "Indian paintbrush," Mrs. Gunderson supplied with a fond smile. "Good for nothing, but looking pretty, much like some people I could mention." She gave Katherine an appraising look that wasn't entirely approving. Katherine accepted the slightly crushed flowers. "They're beautiful, Lily. Thank you. Perhaps we should put them in water? I'll find a jar." Lily dashed off to rummage through a cupboard. Mrs. Gunderson moved closer, lowering her voice. "Deputy Taylor came by the store while I was there this morning, asking questions about a red-headed woman from Denver." Katherine's fingers stilled on the dough. "Is that so?" Said her father's some important judge, offering good money to anyone who helps bring her home." The older woman's eyes were sharp. "I told him I hadn't seen any such person." "Why would you do that?" Katherine whispered, conscious of Lily still searching for a suitable container. Mrs. Gunderson shrugged. "Not my business why a young woman might run from a powerful man. Seen enough in my 62 years to know men with power aren't always men with kindness." She paused. "But Owen Kincaid is a good man with a little girl who needs looking after proper. You bring trouble to this house. You and I will have words." Before Katherine could respond, Lily returned triumphantly with a blue glass bottle. "This one's perfect. Pa says it used to hold Ma's favorite perfume." As Katherine arranged the flowers, her mind raced. If Deputy Taylor was already asking questions, it wouldn't be long before her father's men arrived. Judge Edward Novak didn't tolerate disobedience, especially when it threatened his carefully cultivated political connections. She needed to leave, immediately, before Owen returned. before she brought danger to this household that had shown her unexpected kindness. By late afternoon, Owen returned to find his home transformed in subtle ways. The floors had been swept, windows washed, and the unmistakable aroma of fresh bread filled the kitchen. Katherine stood at the stove, stirring a pot of what smelled like beef stew, while Lily sat at the table, pencil in hand, brow furrowed in concentration. "Look, Pop," Lily exclaimed when she saw him. "Miss Katherine is teaching me to write my letters proper. See how my S doesn't look like a snake anymore." Owen hung his hat on the peg by the door, nodding approval at the neat rows of letters on his daughter's slate. The domesticity of the scene made his chest tighten with memories of Sarah. "Mr. Kincaid," Katherine acknowledged him with a nod. "I hope you don't mind that we've started some informal lessons." "Not at all." He hesitated, the wanted poster heavy in his pocket. "Lily, why don't you go wash up for supper? I need to speak with Miss Novak." Once Lily had left, Katherine turned to face him fully, her expression resigned. "You've heard something." Owen withdrew the poster, placing it on the table between them. "Want to tell me why a judge's daughter is sleeping in barns and pretending to be a schoolteacher?" Katherine stared at the drawing of herself, one finger tracing the edge of the paper. "I am a schoolteacher, or was, in Boston, before my mother died and my father insisted I return to Denver. And the part about not being in your right mind?" A bitter smile crossed her face. "My father believes any woman who refuses an advantageous marriage must be mentally unsound." "Marriage?" To Senator Harrison Caldwell, 63 years old, twice widowed, with political connections my father covets. Her voice remained steady, but her hands gripped her apron tightly. "The wedding is scheduled for next month. I chose not to attend." Owen studied her face, looking for signs of instability or deception. What he saw instead was the same quiet determination he'd noticed earlier. "Why Silverdale?" "They need a teacher. I saw the advertisement in a Denver newspaper. Remote enough that my father wouldn't think to look there immediately. And now I should leave, before I bring trouble to your door." She untied her apron, folding it precisely. "My father won't stop looking. If Deputy Taylor is already asking questions, Mrs. Gunderson told you." Katherine nodded. She also implied she hadn't seen anyone matching my description. "I'm grateful for her discretion, but I won't put your family at risk." Owen ran a hand through his hair, conflicted. The reasonable course would be to let her go, or better yet, to escort her to town himself and collect whatever reward Judge Novak was offering. Times had been lean since Sarah's death, and the ranch always needed something. But the thought of returning this woman to a forced marriage turned his stomach. Sarah had taught him to judge people by their actions, not their circumstances. And everything he'd seen of Katherine Novak spoke of integrity and quiet courage. "The stage doesn't come until Thursday," he said finally. "I can walk to town tonight. Perhaps find work, and have everyone talking by morning. This is a small community, Miss Novak. Word travels faster than telegram." He shook his head. "Thursday. We stick to the original plan." Katherine's eyes widened. "But the poster is unfortunate." Owen folded it and returned it to his pocket. "But a grown woman has the right to decide her own path. My wife would haunt me till my dying day if I handed you over to a man you're running from." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. I'll be gone before I cause any trouble." Owen wasn't sure he believed that, but he nodded anyway. "Supper smells good. Lily will be wondering what's keeping us." That night, after Lily was tucked in bed and the house had grown quiet, Katherine sat at the kitchen table with a single lantern, writing in a small journal. The day's events had left her shaken but resolute. She needed to reach Silverdale, establish herself quickly, and hope that her father would eventually accept her decision. A floorboard creaked, and she looked up to find Owen standing in the doorway, a steaming cup in each hand. "Thought you might want some tea," he offered, setting one before her. "Sarah always said it helped clear the mind." "Thank you." Katherine closed her journal. "Your wife sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was." Owen took the chair opposite her, his large hands cradling his cup. "Smartest decision I ever made was convincing her to marry me. Second smartest was listening when she told me what to do." A small smile curved Katherine's lips. "And what would she tell you to do now?" "Exactly what I'm doing. Helping someone who needs it." He studied her over the rim of his cup. "Though she'd probably also tell me to stop being so damned curious about your story. There's not much to tell that you haven't already deduced." Privileged upbringing, education back east. A father with political aspirations who sees his daughter as an asset to be traded. And no other family to turn to? Katherine shook her head. My mother understood what it meant to be trapped in an arrangement not of her choosing. She insisted I receive an education that would allow me independence if needed. After she died last year, my father. She trailed off, memories darkening her expression. Let's just say he had different ideas about a woman's purpose. Owen nodded slowly. And this Senator Caldwell, what kind of man is he? The kind who sees women as possessions and children as inconveniences. Her voice hardened. His first wife died in childbirth. His second under mysterious circumstances that were quietly dismissed due to his political connections. Yet your father would give you to such a man. My father sees what he wishes to see. A powerful alliance. Connections to Washington. Perhaps a governorship. Katherine stared into her tea. When I refused, he began suggesting that grief over my mother's death had affected my mental stability. The implications were clear: agree to the marriage, or be committed to an asylum for treatment. Owen's jaw tightened. That's not something any father should threaten. No, she agreed softly. It isn't. They sat in silence for a moment, the lamplight casting warm shadows across the table between them. What will you do in Silverdale? Owen asked finally. Teach. Live simply. Hope that distance and time will make my father reconsider. She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. I don't need wealth or status, Mr. Kincaid. Just the freedom to determine my own path. Something shifted in Owen's expression, a softening, perhaps, or recognition. Owen, he corrected gently. If we're sharing midnight tea and confidences, you might as well use my given name. Owen, she repeated, the single word somehow intimate in the quiet kitchen. And you should call me Katherine. His smile reached his eyes for the first time since they'd met. Katherine it is. The next morning brought rain, a steady, soaking spring shower that turned the yard to mud and kept them all indoors. Lily was delighted by the unexpected holiday from outdoor chores, especially when Katherine suggested they use the time for reading lessons. Owen found himself pausing in his work throughout the day, drawn to the scene in the parlor. Katherine sat beside Lily on the sofa, a book of fairy tales open between them, patiently guiding his daughter through words she didn't recognize. There was a natural ease between them that made his chest ache with both gratitude and unease. Sarah had been gone 3 years, yet having another woman in the house, especially one as compelling as Katherine, stirred conflicting emotions he wasn't prepared to examine. Shortly after noon, the sound of approaching horses cut through the patter of rain. Owen moved to the window, tension immediate in his shoulders when he recognized Deputy Taylor alongside 2 men he didn't know, both wearing city clothes unsuited to the weather. Katherine, he said quietly, take Lily to her room. Stay there until I come for you. She glanced up, alarm crossing her features when she saw his expression. Without question, she gathered Lily and the book, heading swiftly down the hallway. Pa. Lily turned back, confusion in her eyes. Go with Miss Katherine, sweetheart. I need to speak with some men about ranch business. Owen waited until they were out of sight before opening the door to find James Taylor and his companions already on the porch, water streaming from their hats. Owen, Taylor nodded. Sorry to trouble you in this weather. These gentlemen are looking for Judge Novak's daughter. Thought you might be able to help them. The taller of the 2 strangers stepped forward, removing his hat. Robert Matthews, private investigator employed by Judge Novak. We have reason to believe his daughter passed through this area recently. Is that so? Owen kept his expression neutral. What's a judge's daughter doing out this way? Miss Novak is unwell, Matthews said smoothly. Her father is deeply concerned for her safety. She left Denver without proper escort or resources. The second man, shorter but more solidly built, surveyed the ranch with cold eyes. We know she's been here, Kincaid. Save us all some trouble and tell us where she went. Owen crossed his arms. Don't believe I caught your name, Mr. Samuel Wilson, the judge's personal secretary. Well, Mr. Wilson, I don't take kindly to accusations or demands on my property. If you have questions, you can ask them civilly or leave. Taylor shifted uncomfortably. Owen, they just want to talk to the woman Mrs. Gunderson saw here yesterday. If she's moved on, no harm in saying where. And if I said no woman fitting that description has been at my ranch. Matthews smiled thinly. Then I would remind you that harboring a fugitive, particularly one whose mental state renders her unable to make rational decisions, could have serious legal consequences. Is she a fugitive now? What crime has she committed? Owen challenged. The legal term is escape from protective custody, Wilson interjected. Judge Novak had begun proceedings to have his daughter placed under proper medical supervision for her own safety when she fled. The calculated way they spoke of Katherine made Owen's blood boil. These men weren't concerned for her welfare. They were hunting her like property to be reclaimed. I can't help you, gentlemen, he said firmly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to attend to. Matthew stepped closer, lowering his voice. Judge Novak is offering $500 for information leading to his daughter's safe return, a significant sum for a struggling rancher. $500. Enough to repair the south fence line, buy new breeding stock, maybe even hire consistent help. The temptation flickered briefly before Owen extinguished it. Deputy Taylor knows where to find me if there are further questions, he said, meeting Matthew's gaze steadily. Good day, gentlemen. As they mounted their horses and rode away, Owen remained on the porch, watching until they disappeared from sight. Only then did he return inside, his decision already made. Katherine stood in the hallway, her face pale. You heard. Owen nodded. Lily, reading in her room. I told her it was a special quiet game. She wrapped her arms around herself. They won't stop looking. No, they won't, he agreed. Which is why we need to change our plans. I should leave tonight. If they connect me to you, they already have. Matthews isn't a fool. He'll have men watching the roads to town and the stage depot. Owen moved to the window, verifying they were truly alone before continuing. There's an old trapper's cabin about 15 miles north, in the foothills. My brother Thomas stays there sometimes when he's working that section of our land. It's not much, but it's sheltered and hidden. Katherine stared at him. You're suggesting I hide there? For a few days, yes. Let these men search the area and move on. Once they're convinced you've left the territory, we can arrange safer transportation to Silverdale. Why would you take such a risk for someone you barely know? Owen was silent for a long moment. When Sarah was dying, she made me promise two things: to raise Lily with kindness, and to trust my instincts about people. My instincts tell me you're someone worth helping. Katherine's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't know how I'll ever repay such kindness. You can start by packing what you'll need for a few days. We'll leave after dark. The rain had slowed to a gentle mist by nightfall, perfect cover for their departure. Owen had told Lily that Katherine needed to visit a sick friend unexpectedly, promising she would return soon. His daughter had accepted the explanation with surprising ease, extracting a promise from Katherine to bring back a story about her adventure. They rode in silence, Katherine seated behind Owen on his most reliable mare. The forest grew denser as they climbed into the foothills, moonlight occasionally breaking through the clouds to illuminate the narrow trail. Katherine's arms were wrapped around his waist, her body warm against his back, a proximity that was both reassuring and disquieting. Not much further, Owen said over his shoulder as they forded a shallow stream. Thomas keeps the cabin stocked with basic provisions. You should be comfortable enough until this blows over. How will you explain my absence to Deputy Taylor if he returns? I'll say you left in the night, headed south toward New Mexico territory. James is a good man, but he respects the law above all else. Better he believes you gone than suspects the truth. The cabin appeared suddenly in a small clearing, a sturdy structure of logs and stone that blended almost seamlessly with the surrounding forest. Owen dismounted first, then offered his hand to help Katherine down. Inside, the cabin was simple but sound. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a narrow bed in the corner, a rough-hewn table with two chairs, and shelves stocked with canned goods and other necessities. It's not what you're accustomed to. Owen apologized as he lit the lantern hanging from a central beam. Katherine surveyed the cabin with appreciative eyes. It's perfect, warm, dry, and invisible from the road. She turned to him, her expression serious. Owen, I can never thank you enough for this risk you're taking. No need for thanks. Just stay put until I come for you. 3 days, maybe 4. He hesitated. There's a rifle above the door and ammunition in that box by the bed. Thomas made sure I knew how to shoot after Sarah died. Said a man raising a daughter alone needed to be twice as vigilant. Your brother sounds like a wise man. He has his moments. Owen checked the fireplace, finding it already laid with kindling and logs. This should keep you warm tonight. I'll try to return tomorrow with more supplies and news." As he turned to leave, Katherine caught his arm. "Wait, there's something you should know. About my father." Owen stilled. "What about him? If he discovers you helped me." She took a deep breath. "Edward Novak doesn't forgive what he sees as betrayal. He would think nothing of destroying your ranch, your reputation, even your relationship with Lily if it served his purpose. Are you trying to frighten me off? I'm trying to make sure you understand the full consequences of your generosity." Her hand remained on his arm, her touch light but insistent. "My father once ruined a man's business and had him imprisoned because he refused to sell property my father wanted. He's not just powerful, he's vindictive." Owen covered her hand with his own. "Katherine, I grew up with a father who believed might made right. I promised myself I'd never become that man. If standing against bullies, even well-connected ones, is the price of keeping that promise, so be it." Something shifted in her expression, surprise giving way to something deeper, more vulnerable. For a moment, Owen thought she might step closer and found himself hoping she would. Instead, she withdrew her hand slowly. "Then I'll pray your kindness doesn't cost you everything. Get some rest," he said gently. "Dawn comes early in these mountains." As Owen rode back through the darkened forest, his thoughts remained with the woman in the cabin. He'd known her barely 2 days, yet something about Katherine Novak resonated with him on a level he hadn't experienced since Sarah. Her courage, her principles, her gentle way with Lily, all combined to create an impression that lingered like music after the last note had faded. And that, he realized with sudden clarity, made her more dangerous to his peace of mind than any vengeful judge could ever be. The next morning, Lily peppered him with questions about Katherine's mysterious friend and when she might return. Owen answered as truthfully as he could without revealing the truth, promising that Katherine would be back as soon as her friend was better. "But she will come back, won't she, Pa?" Lily asked, her small face serious. "She promised to teach me multiplication next. She'll come back if she can, sweetheart." He smoothed her hair. "Now eat your breakfast. Mrs. Gunderson will be here soon, and I need to ride into town for supplies." In Silver Creek, the small settlement 5 miles from his ranch, Owen found the town buzzing with gossip about Judge Novak's missing daughter. Matthews and Wilson had taken rooms at the hotel and were questioning everyone who might have seen Katherine. Offering good money, too, Joe Simmons told him as he loaded supplies into Owen's wagon at the general store. $500 just for information. Makes a man think about keeping his eyes open. Makes a man wonder what kind of father needs hired guns to find his daughter, Owen countered. Joe shrugged. "Way I heard it, the lady's not right in the head. Grief over her ma dying turned her simple. Judge is just trying to keep her safe." Owen bit back the angry retort that sprang to his lips. "Sounds like a private family matter to me." "Sure does. Say, you need coffee? Got a fresh shipment in yesterday." As Owen finished his shopping, he spotted Matthews emerging from the telegraph office. The investigator's eyes narrowed when he saw Owen, and he altered his course to intercept him. "Mr. Kincaid, I was hoping to run into you." Owen secured the last of his purchases in the wagon. "Mr. Matthews, something I can help you with?" "Perhaps." Matthews produced a cigar, taking his time lighting it. "I've been asking around town. Seems you're well respected here. Hard-working, honest. A devoted father. Kind of folks to say so. It would be a shame if anything tarnished that reputation." Matthews blew a perfect smoke ring. "Judge Novak values loyalty highly. He rewards those who assist him and remembers those who impede his efforts." Owen met his gaze steadily. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Matthews?" "Not at all. Simply making an observation." Matthews smiled thinly. "We'll be conducting a thorough search of the area over the next few days, including all outlying properties. I trust you won't object if we inspect your ranch." "Actually, I would. Private property remains private unless you have legal cause to search it. Perhaps Deputy Taylor could explain the concept of aiding and abetting to you." Owen stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Perhaps you could explain to Judge Novak that coercion and intimidation aren't welcome in this community. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a ranch to run." As he drove the wagon out of town, Owen fought to control his anger. Matthew's veiled threat confirmed Katherine's warning. Her father wasn't a man who accepted defiance, and he had the resources to make good on his intimidation. Owen needed to get Katherine safely away before the investigation closed in on them. and he needed to do it without endangering Lily or losing his ranch in the process. At the trapper's cabin, Katherine had spent the morning organizing her meager possessions and planning her next steps. The isolation gave her time to think clearly for the first time since leaving Denver. Her original plan, reaching Silverdale and establishing herself as the town's schoolteacher, now seemed dangerously naive. Her father's reach was longer than she'd anticipated. Even if she made it to Silverdale, how long before his investigators tracked her there? She needed to disappear more thoroughly, perhaps change her name and appearance, travel further west to California or north to Wyoming territory. The prospect was daunting, but the alternative, returning to Denver and the fate her father had arranged, was unthinkable. The sound of an approaching rider pulled her from her thoughts. She moved to the window, relief washing over her when she recognized Owen's broad-shouldered form. He dismounted, carrying a bundle of supplies and what appeared to be a letter. "You've been busy," he observed as he entered, noting her reorganization of the cabin. "Idle hands invite melancholy thoughts." Katherine accepted the bundle. "Thank you for the supplies. Have there been developments in town?" Owen's expression tightened. "Matthews and Wilson are questioning everyone, offering rewards, making veiled threats. They plan to search outlying properties soon, including your ranch. Eventually." He handed her the letter. "This came for you. Or rather, for Miss K. Novak, General Delivery, Silver Creek. The postmaster gave it to me when he heard me asking for coffee beans. Said he knew I had a visitor staying at the ranch who might be expecting mail." Katherine stared at the envelope, her heart racing as she recognized the handwriting. "It's from my friend Rebecca in Boston. I wrote to her before leaving Denver, told her I was headed west, but wasn't sure where I'd settle." She opened it carefully, scanning the contents. "She says my father has contacted everyone I knew in Boston, claiming I'm mentally unstable and offering rewards for information about my whereabouts. He's determined. I'll give him that." Owen leaned against the table. "Katherine, I don't think Silverdale will be far enough. Men like your father and Matthews don't give up easily. I've been thinking the same thing." She refolded the letter. "Perhaps California. I could take a different name, find work as a governess or teacher in a large city where I'd be just another face in the crowd." Owen nodded slowly. "It could work, but getting there would be the challenge. Train or stagecoach would be too obvious. They'd have men watching all the regular routes. Then what do you suggest? My brother Thomas is driving a cattle herd to Wyoming next week. From there, you could catch the train west. He's a good man, trustworthy. He'd see you safely to Cheyenne." Katherine felt a curious mixture of gratitude and disappointment at the solution. It was practical, sensible, and meant she would likely never see Owen or Lily again once she left. "That's very kind. Both of you taking such risks for a stranger." "Not such a stranger anymore," Owen said quietly. Their eyes met, and Katherine felt the same inexplicable connection that had been growing between them since their midnight conversation in his kitchen. There was something in Owen Kincaid that called to her, a steadiness, an integrity that reminded her of what her mother had always said made a good man. Before either could speak further, a distant sound caught Owen's attention. He moved swiftly to the window, his body tensing. Riders, 3 of them, coming up the trail. Katherine joined him, fear tightening her throat as she recognized Matthews among the approaching men. "How did they find this place?" "Someone must have seen me leave town with supplies and followed." Owen cursed under his breath. "They're too close for you to escape on horseback. What do we do?" Owen's mind raced through options, discarding each as too dangerous or impractical. "There's a root cellar beneath the cabin. Trapdoor under that rug. It's small, but it might be your only chance to remain hidden." Katherine moved quickly, pulling back the worn rug to reveal the trapdoor. Owen helped her lift it, revealing a narrow space dug into the earth beneath the cabin. "I'll try to get rid of them quickly," he promised as she descended into the darkness. "Be careful," she whispered. "Matthews isn't a man to underestimate." Owen replaced the trapdoor and rug just as hoofbeats entered the clearing. He grabbed a hunting knife from the shelf, tucking it into his boot before stepping outside to meet the unwelcome visitors. Matthews dismounted first, flanked by Wilson and a local man Owen recognized as one of Joe Simmons' cousins, likely hired as a guide. "Mr. Kincaid," Matthews called, feigning surprise. "What a coincidence finding you here." "My family's cabin, Matthews." "Not much of a coincidence." Owen kept his stance relaxed but alert. Something I can help you with. Just conducting our search, as discussed, covering all possibilities. Matthews glanced toward the cabin. Mind if we take a look inside? Actually, I do mind. This is private property. Wilson stepped forward, hand resting meaningfully on his holstered pistol. We can do this the easy way or the difficult way, Kincaid. Owen measured his options. Refusing outright would only confirm their suspicions. Better to appear cooperative while maintaining control of the situation. Fine. Look your fill. But I'll be present for every moment of your search. He gestured toward the cabin. After you, gentlemen. Inside, Matthews conducted a methodical inspection, checking the single cupboard, looking under the bed, examining the shelves. Wilson remained by the door, eyes fixed on Owen with undisguised hostility. Looks like you've been bringing in fresh supplies, Matthews observed, noting the bundle on the table. Spring repairs. My brother and I take turns maintaining the place. And where is your brother now? Working the North Range. We rotate responsibilities. Matthews nodded, seemingly satisfied, until his gaze fell on the rug in the center of the room. Something in its placement must have caught his attention, for he moved toward it purposefully. Interesting pattern on this rug. Hand-woven. Owen's heart hammered as Matthews nudged the edge with his boot. My wife's work. One of the last things she made before she died. The mention of Sarah gave Matthews pause. For a moment, something like genuine sympathy crossed his face. My condolences. Losing a spouse is a terrible thing. Yes, it is. Their eyes met in a moment of unexpected understanding. Matthews seemed on the verge of stepping away when Wilson spoke from the doorway. Check under the rug, Robert. These old cabins often have storage beneath the floorboards. The brief connection broken, Matthews nodded. Of course. He bent down, grasping the edge of the rug. Owen tensed, ready to intervene. Though what he planned to do against two armed men, he wasn't entirely sure. Before Matthews could lift the rug, however, a commotion outside drew their attention. Hello? Anyone home? A woman's voice called. Owen recognized Mrs. Gunderson's distinctive Norwegian accent with shock and confusion. What was she doing here? Wilson moved from the doorway, allowing Mrs. Gunderson to enter, Lily's small form half hidden behind her skirts. There you are, Owen Kincaid, the older woman exclaimed. Your daughter has been pestering me senseless about bringing you lunch, insisting you'd be working too hard to remember to eat. She thrust a basket forward. I told her it was too far for little legs, but she is stubborn like her father. Lily peeked around Mrs. Gunderson's side, her eyes widening at the sight of strangers in the cabin. Pa? Who are these men? Owen recovered from his surprise, crossing to his daughter and lifting her into his arms. Just some gentlemen asking about travelers in the area, sweetheart. Mrs. Gunderson, this is Mr. Matthews and Mr. Wilson. They're looking for a missing woman. Mrs. Gunderson nodded, her expression carefully neutral. The judge's daughter. Yes, everyone in town is talking about it. She set the basket on the table with deliberate movements. I brought stew and fresh bread. Enough for all if these gentlemen are hungry. Matthews straightened, abandoning his examination of the rug. Thank you, ma'am, but we should continue our search. Other areas to cover before nightfall. He nodded to Owen. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Kincaid. As the men departed, Owen stood in the doorway, Lily still in his arms, watching until they disappeared down the trail. Only then did he turn to Mrs. Gunderson, questions evident in his expression. Deputy Taylor came to the ranch looking for you, she explained before he could ask. When I realized where you must have gone, I thought perhaps you could use a timely interruption. She glanced meaningfully at the rug. Some things are better left undisturbed. Owen set Lily down. Sweetheart, why don't you gather some of those wildflowers outside? I'm sure your mother would have loved them on her rug. Once Lily was out of earshot, he faced Mrs. Gunderson directly. How did you know? I've lived long enough to recognize a hunted woman when I see one, and long enough to know that not all laws are just, especially those that treat women as property. She began unpacking the basket. Now, where is she? That stew really will get cold. Owen moved the rug and opened the trapdoor. Katherine emerged, dusty and slightly cramped from the confined space, but otherwise unharmed. She blinked in the sudden light, her gaze moving from Owen to Mrs. Gunderson in confusion. It seems we have an ally, Owen explained. Mrs. Gunderson snorted. More than one, if you count Lily. That child hasn't stopped talking about her perfect teacher since the moment she arrived. She gestured to the table. Sit. Eat. Then we can discuss how to get you safely away from here. Later, after a meal that had indeed included enough for everyone, the adults gathered around the table while Lily napped on the narrow bed. Mrs. Gunderson had confirmed what Owen suspected. Matthews and Wilson were methodically searching every property within 20 miles and had enlisted several locals to help. They're offering $50 to anyone who provides information, she reported. A fortune to some of these farmers. We need to move Katherine sooner than planned, Owen decided. Thomas won't be ready with the cattle drive for another week. That's too long to wait. Mrs. Gunderson considered this. My sister lives in Greeley. She could take the girl in until arrangements can be made for further travel. Greeley is still in Colorado territory, Katherine pointed out. Too close to my father's influence. But it's on the train line north, Owen said thoughtfully. If you could reach Greeley safely, you could continue to Cheyenne from there. The problem remains how to get her to Greeley without being seen, Mrs. Gunderson mused. These investigators are watching the roads and the stage depot. Owen stood, pacing the small cabin as he considered their options. What if they weren't looking for a woman at all? Both women turned to him with questioning looks. My brother left some of his clothes here last time he stayed. With your hair tucked under a hat, dressed as a young man, you might pass unnoticed. Especially if you were traveling with a known local, someone above suspicion. Like a rancher and his young son, Mrs. Gunderson nodded approvingly. It could work. Katherine touched her hair uncertainly. Cut it, you mean? Just enough to make the disguise convincing, Owen assured her. It will grow back. A small price for freedom, Mrs. Gunderson added pragmatically. Better a shortened braid than a shortened life with a man you fear. Katherine squared her shoulders. You're right, of course. When would we leave? Tomorrow at dawn, Owen decided. I'll bring a wagon to the fork in the trail, a mile south of here. Less obvious than riding double on horseback. Mrs. Gunderson can take Lily back to the ranch tonight and keep her there until we return. And if we're stopped? Katherine asked. Then I'm taking my son to visit friends in Greeley while his sister stays with her grandmother. The lie came more easily than Owen expected. Nothing suspicious about that. As plans were finalized and Mrs. Gunderson prepared to depart with a sleepy Lily, Katherine found herself filled with conflicting emotions. Relief at the prospect of escape warred with fear of discovery. And beneath both lay a growing awareness that leaving Owen behind would cost her more than she'd anticipated. She watched as he knelt to say goodbye to Lily, promising to return soon with a special surprise. The tenderness between father and daughter tugged at something deep within her, a longing for connection she denied herself in her flight from Denver. Once they were alone, Katherine broke the silence that had settled between them. I don't know how I'll ever repay all you've done. Owen turned from the door, his expression serious. Live freely. That's repayment enough. And if I wanted to offer more? The words hung in the air between them, laden with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge fully. Owen moved closer, close enough that Katherine could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Katherine, he began, voice lowered. I want you to understand something. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes after, I don't regret helping you. Not for a moment. Nor do I regret accepting your help. She hesitated, then added softly. Or coming to know you and Lily, brief though our time has been. His hand rose, fingers lightly brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to withdraw. Instead, Katherine leaned slightly forward, closing the remaining distance between them. Their lips met in a kiss that began tentatively but quickly deepened with shared longing. Owen's arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer, while Katherine's hands found their way to his shoulders, steadying herself against the rush of emotion. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Owen rested his forehead against hers. I should go, he murmured. Early start tomorrow. Yes, she agreed, though neither made any move to separate. Katherine, Owen began again, his voice rough with feeling. When this is over, when you're safe, she pressed her fingers gently to his lips. One day at a time. Let's see where tomorrow leads before making promises we might not be able to keep. Reluctantly, Owen nodded, pressing a final kiss to her palm before stepping back. Dawn, he reminded her. Be ready. As he rode away into the gathering twilight, Katherine touched her lips, still warm from his kiss. For the first time since fleeing Denver, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond mere escape, one that included the possibility of returning to a place that, in just a few short days, had begun to feel remarkably like home. Owen returned to the ranch to find Deputy Taylor waiting on his porch, expression troubled beneath his wide-brimmed hat. "James," Owen acknowledged, dismounting wearily. "Bit late for social calls." "Not social. Official." Taylor removed his hat, turning it in his hands, a nervous gesture Owen had known since they were boys together. "Those investigators have been asking a lot of questions about you. Specifically, about your movements over the past few days." Owen busied himself with unsaddling his horse. "I've been working my land, same as always." "Owen," Taylor's voice dropped. "They know you met the Novak woman. Mrs. Simmons saw her at your breakfast table the morning after she arrived. Now she's nowhere to be found, and you're making trips to that cabin with supplies." "You following me now, James? I'm trying to help you, damn it." Taylor stepped closer. "These men aren't just hired investigators. Wilson has a reputation back east, the kind that doesn't come from serving legal papers. Whatever you're involved in, it's more dangerous than you realize." Owen straightened, meeting his old friend's concerned gaze. "I appreciate the warning, but there's nothing for you to worry about. Matthews is convinced you're hiding her. He's planning to request formal search warrants from Judge Peterson tomorrow." Taylor replaced his hat. "If they find her here, or any evidence you've been helping her evade her father's custody, they'll arrest you. What would happen to Lily then?" The question struck home as intended. Owen's jaw tightened. "I understand your concern, but I've done nothing wrong, and neither has Miss Novak." "Maybe not, but that won't matter if Judge Novak decides otherwise." Taylor turned to leave, then paused. "You were always stubborn, even as a boy. Just be careful. For Lily's sake, if not your own." After Taylor departed, Owen checked on his sleeping daughter before retiring to his room. Sleep eluded him as he considered the deputy's warning. James was right about one thing. The stakes were higher than he'd initially calculated. If arrested for aiding Katherine, Lily would suffer most. Yet the alternative, betraying a woman fleeing forced marriage and possible institutionalization, was unthinkable. Sarah would never forgive such a failure of character, and he would never forgive himself. By dawn, his resolve was firm. He loaded the wagon with farm equipment as a plausible cover, left Mrs. Gunderson with instructions for Lily, and set out for the meeting point. Katherine was waiting as arranged, her carpetbag and a small bundle of Thomas's clothes beside her. In the soft morning light, she looked both determined and vulnerable, a combination that tightened something in Owen's chest. "You came," she said simply. "Did you doubt I would?" A small smile curved her lips. Not for a moment. They worked quickly, Katherine changing into Thomas's clothes behind a screen of bushes while Owen kept watch. When she emerged, Owen was momentarily taken aback by the transformation. With her hair cut short and tucked beneath a worn hat, wearing trousers and a loose shirt, she could pass as a youth of 15 or 16, certainly as a rancher's son to casual observation. "Will I do?" she asked, spreading her arms uncertainly. Owen nodded, swallowing past a sudden tightness in his throat. "You'll do fine. Just remember to lower your voice if anyone speaks to you directly, and let me do most of the talking." They concealed her dress and carpetbag beneath the farm equipment, covered everything with a tarp, and began the journey to Greeley. The morning was clear, the road relatively empty as they passed through Silver Creek. A few early risers nodded greeting to Owen, giving his supposed son curious glances, but no particular scrutiny. Outside town, Owen allowed himself to relax slightly. So far, so good. We should reach Greeley by late afternoon if we maintain this pace. Katherine adjusted her hat, still unused to the sensation of shortened hair against her neck. "Will Mrs. Gunderson's sister truly take me in?" Ingrid Olson is cut from the same cloth as her sister. Fiercely independent and not overly concerned with men telling women what to do. Owen smiled. "She lost her husband in the war and has run their farm alone ever since. She'll give you shelter until you can safely continue north." They traveled in comfortable silence for several miles, the steady rhythm of the horse's hooves and the familiar creaking of the wagon creating a sense of ordinary domesticity that belied the urgency of their mission. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses near a small creek. Owen produced a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and apples from his pack, which they shared sitting on a fallen log. "Tell me about Lily's mother," Katherine asked suddenly. "If that's not too painful to discuss." Owen considered the question, finding to his surprise that it wasn't unwelcome. "Sarah was a schoolteacher, like you. Came west from Philadelphia with dreams of educating frontier children. We met when she boarded at my parents' ranch her first month in Colorado." He smiled at the memory. "She was horrified by the lack of books in our house and immediately set about correcting that deficiency. She sounds wonderful. She was strong-minded, passionate about learning, determined that Lily would have every opportunity, even on a ranch miles from town." Owen's expression softened. "She would have liked you." Katherine glanced down at her borrowed clothes. "Even dressed like this?" "Especially dressed like this." Sarah believed rules were made to be questioned, particularly when they limited what women could do or become. He reached over, gently adjusting her hat where it had slipped. "She always said courage was more important than convention." The intimacy of the moment hung between them, interrupted by the distant sound of approaching horses. Owen rose quickly, helping Katherine to her feet. "Back to the wagon," he said quietly. "Remember, you're my son Andrew, and we're visiting your mother's family in Greeley while she recovers from illness." Katherine nodded, adopting a more masculine posture as they returned to the wagon. Owen had just helped her onto the bench when 3 riders appeared around the bend: Matthews, Wilson, and a third man Owen didn't recognize. "Steady," Owen murmured as he took the reins. "Let me handle this." Matthews raised a hand in greeting as they approached. "Mr. Kincaid, traveling far today?" "Greeley," Owen replied evenly. "Family matters." Matthews' gaze shifted to Katherine, studying her with narrowed eyes. "And who might this be?" "My son Andrew. Pay your respects to the gentleman, boy." Katherine touched the brim of her hat, nodding silently in acknowledgement. Owen held his breath, praying the disguise would hold under scrutiny. "Funny," Matthews said slowly. "Mrs. Gunderson mentioned your daughter, but never said anything about a son. Andrew lives with my brother's family most of the year. Helps with their farm since my brother's accident left him with a bad leg." The lie came smoothly, practiced during the long night of planning. "He's visiting for the spring." Wilson moved his horse closer, his cold eyes fixed on Katherine. "Seems a bit delicate for farm work." Owen felt Katherine tense beside him, but kept his own expression neutral. "Takes after his mother's side. Wiry but strong. Gets more done than men twice his size." Matthews continued to study Katherine, suspicion evident in his posture. The moment stretched, tension building with each passing second. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "Well, we won't keep you from your journey. Family matters are important." He tipped his hat. "Good day, Mr. Kincaid. Young Andrew." The investigators moved aside, allowing the wagon to pass. Owen kept their pace steady, fighting the urge to hurry that might betray their anxiety. "They didn't believe you," Katherine whispered once the riders were out of earshot. "No," Owen agreed grimly. "They didn't. Which means we need to reach Greeley before they decide to act on those suspicions." He urged the horses to a faster pace, watching the road behind them for signs of pursuit. For the next few hours, they traveled in tense silence, Katherine frequently checking over her shoulder, while Owen calculated distances and options should Matthews return. The sun was beginning its descent when they finally spotted Greeley's church spire in the distance. Owen guided the wagon toward the outskirts of town, following a less-traveled road that led to Ingrid Olsen's farm. "We've made it," Katherine breathed, relief evident in her voice. "Not quite yet," Owen cautioned, "but close." Ingrid's farm was smaller than Owen's ranch, but impeccably maintained. Neat fields, well-repaired fences, and a tidy 2-story house painted white with blue trim. As they approached, a tall woman with silver-streaked blonde hair emerged onto the porch, shading her eyes against the setting sun. "Owen Kincaid," she called as they drew closer. "My sister said you might be coming." Her gaze shifted to Katherine, a knowing smile crossing her face. "And this must be your son. Come inside, quickly. There's been men asking questions in town already." Inside the farmhouse, Katherine gratefully changed back into her dress while Ingrid prepared a simple but hearty meal. Over supper, they explained their situation more fully, including Matthew's suspicious behavior on the road. "They'll be here by morning," Ingrid predicted matter-of-factly. "But by then, you'll be gone." She looked at Katherine. "The midnight train to Cheyenne stops here for water and coal." The station master owes me a favor. He'll see you aboard without questions. What about Owen? Katherine asked. If Matthews discovers he helped me. I'll handle Matthews, Owen assured her. Once you're safely away, there will be no evidence connecting me to your escape. Just the word of investigators against a respected local rancher. Ingrid snorted. Men like that don't need evidence to cause trouble. But they do need cooperation from locals, which they won't get here. Not after I spread the word about their true purpose. She patted Katherine's hand. Don't worry, dear. We take care of our own in these parts. But I'm not, Katherine began. You are now, Ingrid interrupted firmly. Anyone Elsa Gunderson vouches for his family enough for me. As night fell, Owen helped Ingrid prepare the guest room, while Katherine wrote a brief letter to be delivered to Lily once she was safely away. The domesticity of the scene, hanging fresh linens, discussing sleeping arrangements, created an illusion of normalcy that made their imminent separation all the more poignant. Later, as Ingrid retired to her room and the house grew quiet, Owen and Katherine found themselves alone on the back porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. The evening was mild, scented with lilacs from the bushes that lined Ingrid's garden. I never properly thanked you, Katherine said softly, for everything you've risked. Owen shook his head. No thanks needed. I did what any decent person would do. We both know that's not true. She turned to face him fully. Most people would have turned me away, or worse, handed me over for the reward. You didn't even hesitate to help. Perhaps I should have, Owen admitted. It would have been the safer choice. For Lily, for the ranch. Do you regret it? In the dim light, her eyes sought his, vulnerability evident in her expression. Owen reached out, taking her hand in his. Not for a moment, he said quietly. These past days with you have been unexpected. In the best possible way. Katherine's fingers tightened around his. I feel the same, which makes leaving all the more difficult. It doesn't have to be forever, Owen ventured, the words emerging before he could reconsider them. Once you're established somewhere safe, once this search has died down, perhaps we could find a way. To what? Katherine asked gently. Begin again, with my father still determined to control my future? With the risk that he might discover your involvement and destroy everything you've built? Your father doesn't strike me as a man who gives up easily. But neither am I. Owen drew her closer. I'm not asking for promises, Katherine. Just leave the door open to possibility. In answer, she rose on tiptoe, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that conveyed everything words could not: gratitude, affection, and the bittersweet acknowledgement of what might have been under different circumstances. When they parted, Owen rested his forehead against hers. I should go? Ingrid will wake you when it's time for the train. Will I see you before I leave? He shook his head reluctantly. Too risky. If Matthews is watching the station, my presence would only confirm his suspicions. Katherine nodded, understanding but disappointed. Then this is goodbye. For now, Owen corrected. Just for now. As he prepared to depart, Katherine pressed something into his hand. A small brooch, silver with a single pearl at its center. It was my mother's, she explained. A reminder that not all partings are permanent. Owen closed his fingers around the token, throat tight with emotion. I'll keep it safe until we meet again. The return journey to Silver Creek was solitary and reflective. Owen took a circuitous route, avoiding the main roads where Matthews and his men might be watching. By the time he reached his ranch, dawn was breaking over the eastern hills, painting the landscape in shades of gold and rose. Mrs. Gunderson met him at the door, her expression grave. They were here last night, she said without preamble, asking about you and the woman. Deputy Taylor told them you had gone to Greeley on personal business. Lily, sleeping still? She asked for her story when you returned. Mrs. Gunderson hesitated. Owen, they left this for you. She handed him an envelope bearing the official seal of Judge Edward Novak. Inside was a terse message, written in a bold, authoritative hand. Mr. Kincaid, I am informed you have information regarding the whereabouts of my daughter, Katherine. Your cooperation in this family matter would be generously rewarded. Your interference would be most unwise. I have connections throughout the Colorado judiciary that could prove troublesome for a man in your position. I will arrive in Silver Creek tomorrow to resolve this situation personally. I suggest you prepare accordingly. Judge Edward Novak. Owen refolded the letter, his jaw set. So the judge himself is coming. What will you do? Mrs. Gunderson asked. Before Owen could answer, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Pa, you're back. Did you bring Miss Katherine with you? You promised a surprise. Owen knelt to his daughter's level, gathering her into a hug. No, sweetheart. Miss Katherine had to continue her journey, but she left you a letter. He produced the sealed envelope Katherine had entrusted to him. She asked me to give you this. As Lily excitedly opened her letter, Owen exchanged a significant look with Mrs. Gunderson. The arrival of Judge Novak would bring matters to a head, and Owen needed to be prepared for whatever confrontation might ensue. The next morning dawned clear and bright, at odds with the tension that had settled over Silver Creek. Word of Judge Novak's impending arrival had spread quickly, dividing the townsfolk between those curious about the drama unfolding in their midst and those concerned about the implications for one of their own. Owen spent the morning setting his affairs in order, reviewing financial documents, ensuring Lily's guardianship papers named his brother Thomas as her caretaker in his absence, and writing letters that would explain his actions should the worst occur. The possibility of arrest was real, particularly if Judge Novak's influence extended as far as Katherine feared. Shortly after noon, a private coach arrived at the Silver Creek Hotel, accompanied by 2 mounted guards. Judge Edward Novak had arrived. Owen first glimpsed the judge that evening at the town's only restaurant, where Novak dined with Matthews, Wilson, and several local officials, including Deputy Taylor. From his position across the street, Owen studied the man who had driven Katherine to such desperate measures. Edward Novak cut an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered despite his 60 years, with steel-gray hair and a precisely trimmed beard. His manner was commanding, his gestures authoritative as he addressed his companions. Even from a distance, the judge's formidable presence was evident in the way others deferred to him. Intimidating, isn't he? James Taylor said quietly, joining Owen on the boardwalk. Been telling everyone how his daughter suffered a nervous breakdown after her mother's death. How she needs specialized care he's arranged back east. And you believe him? Owen kept his gaze fixed on the restaurant window. Doesn't matter what I believe. He's got signed statements from 2 doctors attesting to her condition. Taylor sighed. Owen, he wants to see you. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock at the hotel. Says it's in your best interest to attend. I imagine he does. This isn't just about you anymore. Judge has been asking questions about your ranch, about Lily's schooling arrangements. Implied that the territory might need to review whether a single father is fit to raise a daughter alone. Owen's head snapped toward Taylor, anger flashing in his eyes. He threatened my daughter? Not directly, but the implication was clear. Taylor placed a restraining hand on Owen's arm. Don't do anything foolish. This man can destroy you with a word if he chooses. Or I can meet with him and listen to what he has to say. Owen replied, forcing his voice to remain calm despite the rage simmering beneath. Thank you for the message, James. I'll be there. That night, Owen sat on his porch long after Lily was asleep, turning Katherine's brooch over in his fingers. The pearl caught the moonlight, gleaming like a tiny star against the silver setting. By now, she would be in Cheyenne, perhaps already on a westbound train to a new life far from her father's reach. The thought should have brought comfort. Instead, it left him with a hollow ache, not just for the woman he'd come to care for in such a short time, but for the future they might have built together under different circumstances. Morning brought no resolution to his troubled thoughts, but it did bring clarity of purpose. As he dressed in his best shirt and string tie, Owen knew what he had to do. Face Judge Novak directly, neither admitting involvement nor cowering before threats. His only advantage lay in the fact that Katherine was already beyond her father's immediate reach. At precisely 10 o'clock, Owen entered the Silver Creek Hotel. Matthews waited in the lobby, escorting him to a private dining room where Judge Novak sat alone at a table, papers spread before him. Mr. Kincaid, Novak acknowledged without rising. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Owen remained standing. I understand you wanted to see me, Your Honor. Direct. I appreciate that in a man. Novak gestured again to the chair opposite him. This conversation will be easier if we're both comfortable. Reluctantly, Owen took the seat, noting the way Novak studied him with calculated assessment. I'll come straight to the point, Mr. Kincaid. I know you encountered my daughter. I know you assisted her in evading the men I sent to bring her home safely. What I don't know is where she is now. Novak leaned forward slightly. That information is what I require from you today. With all due respect, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't insult my intelligence. Novak's voice remained perfectly modulated, but steel entered his tone. Multiple witnesses place Katherine at your ranch. Your subsequent movements coincide precisely with her disappearance. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. If you had actual evidence, Your Honor, we'd be having this conversation at the sheriff's office, not in private. A thin smile crossed Novak's face. Astute observation. You're correct. I lack the legal grounds for arrest at present. That could change, of course, depending on the outcome of our discussion. Are you threatening me, Judge Novak? I am offering you a choice. Novak pushed a document across the table. $5,000 for information leading to my daughter's current location. A considerable sum that would secure your ranch's future and your daughter's education. All I ask in return is your cooperation in a family matter. The amount was staggering, far more than the 500 Matthews had initially mentioned. Enough to transform the ranch, to provide for Lily in ways Owen had only dreamed of. And if I can't help you, then we explore less pleasant alternatives. Novak withdrew a second document. I've taken the liberty of filing a petition with the territorial court, expressing concern about your fitness as a parent. A single father, financially strained, frequently absent due to ranch responsibilities, the court might well determine that your daughter would benefit from more structured guardianship. Owen's hands clenched beneath the table, rage threatening to overwhelm his carefully maintained composure. You would use an innocent child as leverage? I would do whatever necessary to protect my own child, Novak corrected smoothly. Katherine is unwell, Mr. Kincaid. Her mother's death affected her deeply, clouding her judgment. The marriage I arranged would have provided her security, position, the care she needs. Interesting definition of care, forcing her to marry a man old enough to be her father. Something flickered in Novak's eyes, surprise, perhaps, that Owen knew such specific details. Senator Caldwell is a respected statesman with considerable resources. The match is advantageous for all concerned, except Katherine herself, who fled rather than accepted. A temporary emotional response to grief, one that will pass with proper treatment. Novak straightened the papers before him with precise movements. Now, shall we discuss terms? Or would you prefer to explain to your daughter why she must leave the only home she's known? Before Owen could respond, the door opened abruptly. Both men turned to see Deputy Taylor standing in the doorway, his expression urgent. Excuse the interruption, Taylor said. But there's an incident requiring immediate attention, Judge Novak. I'm in the middle of important business, Deputy. It concerns your daughter, sir. A telegram just arrived from Cheyenne. Novak rose immediately. Show me. As the judge swept from the room, Owen remained seated, pulse racing with possibilities. Had Katherine been discovered? Arrested? The thought of her in custody, dragged back to Denver against her will, was unbearable. Minutes stretched into an eternity before Novak returned, his face ashen with anger. Without a word, he thrust the telegram at Owen. Judge Edward Novak, Silver Creek, Colorado Territory regret to inform Katherine Elizabeth Novak married this morning stop ceremony conducted by Reverend Michael's First Presbyterian Church, Cheyenne. Stop legal documentation forwarded to Denver courts. Stop Sheriff William Porter, Cheyenne. Owen read the message twice, confusion giving way to understanding. Katherine had not fled to California as planned. She had remained in Cheyenne long enough to legally marry, an action that would remove her from her father's legal control permanently under territorial law. But who had she married? The answer came in a second telegram that Novak held crumpled in his other hand. Owen caught only a glimpse of the signature, * Thomas Kincaid star. His brother. Of course. Thomas must have met Katherine in Cheyenne as planned, understood the situation, and offered the most expedient solution, a marriage of convenience that would legally protect her from her father's machinations. Your brother, Novak said, voice deadly quiet. Your own brother married my daughter without consent, without proper courtship, without legal notification. Appears that way. Owen agreed, unable to suppress a surge of relief despite the danger evident in Novak's expression. Congratulations. You have a son-in-law. This is not over, Kincaid. That marriage will be annulled on grounds of Katherine's mental incompetence. Your brother will face charges of coercion, perhaps even abduction. And you, Novak leaned closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You will lose everything for your part in this conspiracy. Owen rose to his full height, meeting Novak's gaze without flinching. I think not, Your Honor. Your daughter is a grown woman who has made her choice clear. Any attempt to invalidate her marriage or punish those who helped her would require public proceedings. Proceedings that might reveal uncomfortable truths about your arrangements with Senator Caldwell. Are you threatening me? I'm suggesting that pursuing this matter further serves no one's interests. Katherine is safe, legally protected, and beyond your immediate control. Accept that reality, and we can all return to our lives without further complication. For a long moment, Novak stared at him with undisguised hatred. Then, with deliberate calm, he gathered his papers from the table. This discussion is concluded, Mr. Kincaid. I suggest you enjoy your victory while it lasts. As the judge departed, Owen remained in the dining room, relief warring with new concerns. Katherine was safe, yes, but now legally married to his brother in what must be a hasty arrangement of convenience. What did that mean for her future? For the connection that had grown between them during their brief time together? More importantly, what retribution might Judge Novak still exact, despite Owen's warning? The following weeks brought both answers and new questions. Judge Novak departed Silver Creek without further direct confrontation, though Owen learned through James Taylor that inquiries had been made about his finances, his property holdings, and even his military service record during the war. The judge was searching for vulnerabilities, storing ammunition for some future reckoning. Meanwhile, a letter arrived from Thomas, explaining the situation in Cheyenne. Owen, by now you've likely heard about the unexpected turn of events. Katherine arrived safely but was immediately recognized by one of Novak's men at the station. With no time for her to board a westbound train, we made a decision based on immediate necessity. The marriage is legal, but in name only. Katherine understands this is a temporary arrangement until more permanent solutions can be found. We've traveled north to our cousin Michael's homestead near Sheridan, where she'll be safe while matters settle. She speaks highly of you, brother. More than highly, if I'm reading between the lines correctly. Whatever grew between you during her time at the ranch has left a deep impression. I'll write again when we're more securely established. Give Lily our love. Thomas. Owen read the letter repeatedly, relief mingling with an unexpected pang of something like jealousy. Thomas had done exactly what Owen would have done in his position, protected Katherine in the most effective way available. That the protection took the form of marriage was simply practical necessity. Yet the thought of Katherine as his brother's wife, even in name only, stirred complicated emotions. Their parting kiss, the connection they'd begun to form, the possibilities they'd left open, all now existed in a new context he wasn't sure how to navigate. Life at the ranch continued, autumn giving way to winter's approach. Lily asked often about Katherine, treasuring the letter she'd left and the stories they'd shared. Owen answered her questions honestly but guardedly, explaining that Katherine had needed to travel far away to be safe, but that perhaps someday they might see her again. In late November, as the first snow dusted the Colorado foothills, a wagon appeared at the ranch house in the early evening. Owen was repairing tack in the barn when Lily's excited shout drew him outside. Pa, come quick. It's Miss Katherine. He emerged to find Katherine helping Mrs. Gunderson down from a rented wagon, her auburn hair, grown out somewhat since their parting, catching the last rays of sunset beneath a practical wool hat. She wore a simple blue traveling dress and a woolen cloak against the cold, looking somehow both exactly as he remembered and entirely new. Katherine, he said, her name emerging as a question and greeting all at once. She turned, a smile breaking across her face that warmed him more effectively than any fire. Owen, I hope we're not intruding. Never, he assured her, crossing the yard in long strides. But I wasn't expecting, Thomas's letter said, so many questions. Mrs. Gunderson interrupted, eyes twinkling with satisfaction. Perhaps we could continue this conversation inside, where it's warm. An old woman's bones don't appreciate winter's arrival. Inside the ranch house, over hot coffee and Mrs. Gunderson's apple cake, explanations unfolded. Thomas had indeed taken Katherine north to Wyoming, where their cousin's remote homestead offered temporary sanctuary. But after 2 months of careful legal maneuvering through attorneys in Denver, an unexpected resolution had emerged. Senator Caldwell died, Katherine explained, cradling her coffee cup between slender hands. A heart seizure, according to the Denver newspapers. Without the marriage arrangement to cement their political alliance, my father's interest in my whereabouts diminished considerably. And the marriage to Thomas? Owen asked, unable to keep the question contained any longer. A soft smile curved her lips. Annulled by mutual consent. The Wyoming judge was remarkably understanding once the circumstances were explained. Thomas is currently courting a lovely young widow in Sheridan, with considerably more enthusiasm than he brought to our arrangement. Relief washed through Owen, though he tried to maintain a measured expression with Lily listening eagerly to every word. So you're free to what? Return to teaching. That remains my intention, yes. Katherine glanced at Mrs. Gunderson, who nodded encouragement. In fact, I've received an interesting offer in that regard. Silver Creek School Board is seeking a teacher for the spring term. Mrs. Gunderson, as a founding member of said board, has suggested my name for consideration. Owen stared between the two women, comprehension dawning slowly. You're staying in Silver Creek? If the position is offered, yes. And if? Katherine hesitated, suddenly uncertain. If there are no objections from the community, particularly from those who showed me such kindness when I most needed it. Before Owen could respond, Lily bounced in her seat. You'll be my teacher? Really and truly. And you'll stay here, not go away again. That's the hope. Yes. Katherine smiled at the child's enthusiasm. Though I would need proper lodgings in town, of course. Mrs. Gunderson snorted. Nonsense. You'll stay with me until more permanent arrangements can be made. My house is far too large for one old woman anyway. As the evening progressed, Owen found himself watching Katherine with growing wonder. The frightened woman he'd discovered in his barn had transformed into something more, still determined, still principled, but now with an assurance that spoke of hard-won confidence. She had faced her father's control, survived, and emerged stronger for the experience. After Lily was tucked in bed and Mrs. Gunderson had retired to the guest room, Owen and Katherine found themselves alone on the porch, much as they had been that last night at Ingrid's farm. The air was cold but clear, stars pricking the velvet darkness above. You didn't answer my question earlier, Katherine said softly. About staying in Silver Creek. Owen turned to her, moonlight silvering her features. It wasn't my question to answer. You have every right to build your life wherever you choose. That's not what I'm asking, and you know it. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see her breath clouding in the cold air. I'm asking if you want me to stay. Here, near you and Lily. The directness of her question deserved equal honesty in return. Yes, he said simply. More than I can properly express. Katherine smiled, relief and something warmer lighting her eyes. Good, because I've discovered something important in these months away. What's that? That freedom isn't just the absence of control. It's the presence of choice. She reached for his hand, her fingers twining with his. And given all possible choices, all possible places I might go, I choose to be here. With you. If you'll have me. Owen drew her closer, his free hand coming up to brush a strand of hair from her face. An echo of their parting months ago. I think Lily would insist upon it. She did declare you perfect from the very beginning. Katherine laughed softly. And what does her father think? In answer, Owen bent and kissed her, conveying in touch what words couldn't fully express. The joy of her return, the promise of possibilities now open before them, and the certainty that whatever challenges still lay ahead, they would face them together. I think, he said when they finally parted, that my daughter has excellent judgment. Spring came early to Colorado that year, bringing with it renewal in more ways than one. The creek ran full with snow melt, wildflowers carpeted the meadows, and Katherine Novak began her tenure as Silver Creek's schoolteacher to universal approval. Her calm competence and genuine passion for education won over even the most skeptical parents, while her mysterious past provided gossip that eventually evolved into a romanticized tale of courage and determination. Judge Edward Novak never returned to Silver Creek, though occasional reports filtered back about his continued political activities in Denver. The threat of his retribution gradually faded, replaced by more immediate concerns: spring planting, summer visitors, autumn harvests. On a perfect June evening, with the setting sun painting the mountains gold, Owen and Katherine were married in a simple ceremony on the ranch. Lily served proudly as flower girl, scattering petals from Sarah's garden before the bride. Thomas stood as best man, his genuine happiness for his brother evident in every word of his heartfelt toast. Mrs. Gunderson wept unabashedly, claiming credit for recognizing from the very beginning what fate had in store. When a woman appears in your barn like something from a fairy tale, she declared to anyone who would listen, only a fool ignores the message. Later, as lanterns illuminated the wedding celebration and guests danced beneath the stars, Owen found Katherine standing at the edge of the gathering, watching Lily twirl happily with Thomas. "Having regrets?" he asked, slipping an arm around his new wife's waist. Katherine leaned into his embrace. "Only that my mother couldn't be here to see this. She always said true happiness comes when you're brave enough to reach for it, whatever the cost." Wise woman. Like her daughter. I was thinking about that morning, when Lily found me in your barn. How frightened I was, how uncertain of my future. Katherine turned in his arms, facing him fully. I never imagined that moment of desperation would lead to this. Owen smiled, remembering his daughter's insistent declaration that morning so many months ago. Lily knew. From the very first moment, she saw what I was too cautious to recognize immediately. And what was that? He brushed a gentle kiss across her lips. That sometimes perfect things arrive in unexpected packages, and that the bravest choice is to open your heart to the possibilities they bring. As they rejoined the celebration, Owen glanced toward the heavens, silently thanking Sarah for the wisdom she'd left behind, the courage to trust his instincts, to stand firm for what was right, and to recognize love when it appeared, even in the most unexpected circumstances. And in the years that followed, as their family grew and the ranch prospered, Owen and Katherine would often reminisce about that first morning, when a single father found a woman sleeping in his barn, and his daughter declared her perfect. As it turned out, Lily had been right all along.